Hey there, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for University Title's Commercial Corner podcast. I am your host, Kathleen Doty, the Commercial Business Development Rep here in San Antonio. And to my left is my co-host and business partner, Romy Jackson, who is our VP of Commercial Services. We're so thrilled you could join us today for another episode. We've been having a ton of fun with our guests talking about all different areas of commercial real estate here in San Antonio and the Hill Country area. And we're just thrilled you could join us. We've got two wonderful guests today that we're very pleased to have join us. I'll let Romy make the introduction, but we're real thrilled and excited to have this conversation.
Thank you, Kathleen. Do a quick introduction, and then I want to kind of talk about how this came about. Stephanie Lozano, we can pretty much put her in a pigeonhole about her responsibilities. Stephanie is the COO of University Title Company statewide. Tom Berry has about 17 hats. The only hat I know that he wears with certainty is the CEO of University Title Company. But Tom, we're going to ask you to discuss the other roles that you play within National Investors Title and Investors Title Company. So this came about. Stephanie and I had a conversation 18 months ago about a movie that none of y'all are old enough to have ever seen. It was called Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It came out in the early 70s. And it was a Western, and had some comedy and a lot of action, but Butch and Sundance rob a train, and all of a sudden they're being chased by people that are more insistent. They're more dedicated to chasing the two outlaws than what has ever happened. And they keep looking over their shoulders for a couple of days saying, who are those guys? Who are those guys? Who are those guys that are chasing us? They're chasing us like nobody else. So Stephanie and I had this conversation about University Title Company. Yeah, who are those guys? Because we want to be a little different from our competition. We want to try to separate ourselves from our competition. So if there's a name to this podcast, it is University Title Company. Who are those guys? And by the way, ladies, Paul Newman, Robert Redford in their prime. Got to watch the movie. And guys, Catherine Ross, you can't argue about that. So, Tom, if you would, tell the folks what your various roles are, where you spend most of your time, so they can get a better feel, a little better understanding for your day.
As you mentioned, I am the CEO of University Title. I'm also, my official title is I'm EVP of Market Development for a National Investors Title Insurance Company and Investors Title Insurance Company. And those are all three discrete entities that are part of the same family of companies. They're part of the Investors Title family of companies. So we have a Texas domiciled underwriter, National Investors Title Insurance Company, which is based here in Texas and serves, including University Title, just over 100 independent title agencies in Texas as an underwriter across the state. So from all of the major markets, and then a lot of smaller markets and more rural agents. So we have a dedicated team of underwriting counsel, all based here in Texas, as well as agency staff. Brandy Abercrombie runs the day in and day out operations of National Investors. And my job is just to help out wherever they need my help, essentially. We have a great group of agents that we work with, including University. Investors Title Insurance Company is our underwriting entity everywhere outside of Texas. So Investors Title is based in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Has been there for 50 years and has two. We also have a large group of agents in multiple states, probably about 30 states that they operate in, as well as some other direct operations in a few other states as well. So my job is to do whatever everybody tells me to do, basically. Primarily that's working on growth strategy, working on new relationships, and trying to expand our footprint in Texas.
When you're talking to agents in the more rural areas, not the metro areas, what do you find is their greatest interest in an underwriter? What's appealing to them in an underwriter?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, first and foremost, it's just like at University Title. Fundamentally, it's how customer service oriented are we? How technically adept are our underwriting staff at answering questions for them so that they can get a file closed and their clients accommodated? But the other big thing outside of the big markets, a lot of our agents get very little help and or attention paid to helping them with sales and client outreach and how do I get another deal in the door. And one of the things that National Investors has focused on particularly is, number one, having everybody that's employed at the underwriter, I think without exception, have all worked inside of an escrow operation, including our underwriting attorneys, have worked inside of an escrow operation, have worked inside of a title company, have worked on the operations of a title company, and have all been either owners in or primarily responsible for how do I get business in the door and how do I serve my clients and how do I make sure that that we're providing value. So one of the things that we really try to focus on at National Investors is just that. How do you sell? How do you get in front of new clients? How do you provide a product and a service that is excellent and is going to bring them back?
So you're helping them in their local market generate business for themselves. Yep. I keep hearing and reading that I want to call them the big four underwriters, national underwriters. They have such a high threshold now for agency remittance that possibly some of these smaller agents are just not going to meet that threshold. Can we offer some relief?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's definitely, I've heard the same. We certainly don't, we really take each relationship as an individual relationship. So we have some agents who, the reality is in some markets, the available universe of remittable title insurance is below what the minimum remittance requirements are for some of the big nationals. We certainly don't have any minimum remittance requirements. It has to be, we're looking for meaningful relationships with folks where we can add value. And that's how we win. But yes.
Okay. Full disclosure to all of our listeners. Thank you, Tom.
You bet.
Full disclosure to all of our listeners. The lady to my left is not happy about being a part of this podcast. She is very far out of her comfort zone. And I promised her that this would be a kind and gentle experience. So, Stephanie Lozano, we've got a little bit of a history together. If you could talk about your role within the company and a little bit of your background, because I find your background in the title insurance business to be very unusual, very informative, and something I'd like you to share, if you don't mind.
Well, I love to stay in the trenches, so I appreciate you guys for bringing me out of my comfort zone. I have been in the title insurance industry for 20 plus years. We'll leave it at that. I actually started in the title industry I'm from Frio County, so I actually started at Frio County Abstract. And I was in high school, and I signed up for a work program, and they said, hey, you have nice penmanship. Why don't you go work at a title company?
That's all it takes.
And I was like,
Who
okay.
knew? Who knew it was that easy?
Yeah.
So I started there, and I worked with Betty Sinden, who were the owners of Frio County Abstract. I worked there for 4 years. So 2 years.
Grand lady.
I learned so much. I'm forever thankful for that opportunity. People would ask me, like, what do you do? I'm like, we don't sell the houses and we don't do the loan, but we do all the other things, right? And so
All the things.
I've kind of grown with that explanation through my career now. And oddly enough, I wanted to go to nursing school and had been on that track, kind of doing courses at night, worked at a title company the entire time. I moved to San Antonio and I got offered a job, which is where we met 18 plus years ago.
A while ago.
And I thought, I'm just going to give this a shot. And so my thing is, like, I love to help people. And I like to tell people, escrow assistants, escrow officers, that this is such a rewarding career. And I think a lot of times that gets taken for granted, and we aren't the show boasters of the transaction. But one time I had a couple, and I was, I think, 21 years old, and they sent me a plant. And it was like a beautiful, now I appreciate beautiful ivy plant. And I thought, well, that's nice. But didn't think I could keep it alive. But the card said, thank you so much for helping our dream come true. Oh. And it was an instant change in what I wanted to do with my life. So here we are. And I have had the opportunity to now work with both of you for a while. And I have found myself to be blessed as part of the puzzle piece to University Title, running the operations team.
Tom mentioned this shortly after we opened San Antonio and Houston. We had that retreat at Lost Pines.
Yep.
Lost Maples, Lost Pines.
Yep.
And I had met you briefly before that, but you made a presentation to the group, which I greatly enjoyed. But you brought up something that I knew, but I never really thought about, and that was that nobody ever gets in the title insurance business on purpose.
Yeah.
They fall into this job.
If someone has, I've not met them yet.
Well, you can't go to school for it. You
Yep.
can't get a degree in it.
No.
Everybody that I know in this business, with the possible exception of Stephanie, because she got started in high school, actually made the conscious decision, I'm going to get in the title insurance business. So you may be the only person that I know in this business in Texas that said, that's what I want to do. You did takeoffs at Frio County.
I did.
All right. So all of y'all who are in rural counties are going to understand what Stephanie says, but those of you in metro counties, you're not. So tell the folks what takeoffs.
Takeoffs, microfilm, microfiche.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, that was my job.
Wow.
So I would go to the courthouse. We had designated days in Frio County that you could go to the courthouse. And I literally would flip through the books and I would write down, oh, they sold a house. Oh, they got a lien. Oh, they did this. And what I would do is take that back to the title company and write it in the abstract books.
Was this with your great penmanship?
It was with my great
Okay,
penmanship.
good.
Yeah, because it had to be legible.
Yes.
So this, it kind of ties into my story with UTC and its history of how long it's been here, but that's such a lost art these days. So when I moved to San Antonio and I met Romy and I was like, what days do we go to the courthouse? And he was like, kiddo, we don't go to the
Welcome
courthouse.
to the big city.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. So I think that has really helped in my operation support, that I understand what it really takes and how this really comes to be. I mean, we've come fast-paced with technology and things like that, and we don't go to the courthouse. But I cherish where that comes from.
Well, and you can still go to Frio County Courthouse and go in the county clerk's office, and you could do a stand-up examination. If you know your way around track books and plat books, you can do a stand-up examination. You try that in Bexar County, or Harris County, or Travis, or Dallas, or Tarrant County. It's impossible. But yes, I agree with you. It is a lost art, and that's why I love rural agents. They still do it the way that I was brought up, the right way, as far as I'm concerned.
Tom and Steph, I would love for our listeners, we've titled this episode, who are those guys? I would love for y'all to give our listeners an opportunity to know a little bit about University Title, who we are, the past growth that we've had over the last 51 years, and what our plans for our future growth is.
Well, I can start with maybe the history of University Title and Investors Title, which, interestingly enough, they haven't been they've been sister companies since 2016. But prior to that, they're both both are now 52-year-old companies. Both started and run and family-run companies for all or the vast majority of their existence. So Investors Title Company was started by Alan Fine in 1972. Alan is still alive today, still goes into the office every day in Chapel Hill. His two sons, Morris and Jim Fine, who we all work with, run the company day in and day out. But it, at its core, is a family-run company. Alan is a CPA by training and was looking for a new business to get into, to your point. And a buddy of his that was a college buddy of his from the University of North Carolina who had gone on, I believe, to be a commercial developer in New York City, was buying a commercial property in North Carolina. And that's an attorney state. He was closing with an attorney, and when he closed on the transaction, he asked the attorney, "Well, where's my title policy?" And he said, "Oh, you don't need one. I examined title. You're good to go." And he apparently picked up the phone to Alan and said, "You were looking for a new business idea? I've got one for you." They don't even know what title insurance here is. I think at the time, the entire title insurance market in North Carolina was like $1.5 million or something. And so Alan, being a very bright and entrepreneurial guy, said, "Okay, I'm going to start a title insurance company," and actually did. The reason it's called Investor's Title is because he didn't have the capital personally to start the company, and so he did a pre-subscription offering. So although it's a family-run company, it started at inception as a publicly traded company because that's the only way he could get the capital together to start it. And he actually, not having a background in it, but being a smart guy and a numbers and risk guy as an accountant, he was the original underwriter. He underwrote the first title policy that investors ever, in 1972, that they ever wrote. And he grew it from there. I think by the early 80s, they were number one market share in North Carolina and have never relinquished that position, and then have grown as a family company from a very small operation into a large regional underwriter. Always based there. His two sons, Morris and Jim, came into the company from roles outside of the company, but have both been there for 30 plus years. As have many of the people that work at Investors. That is a real parallel between University and the Investors Group, is that there are, if you go down to the headquarters of University Title, coincidentally also started in 1972 in College Station, there are people there now that have been with University for 30 plus years. So the culture is very family oriented, very employee oriented, but there are interesting parallels between those two companies. Originally, National Investors was an underwriter for University, and Celia Good-Haddock, whose parents started the company, and Celia's, I think, run the company since 1984. She's also a legend in the title business. When she got ready to retire in 2016, actually approached investors. We were, I guess, their favorite underwriter, and one that they felt was a good cultural match. They were very similar companies, and so University was acquired by the Investors Group of companies in 2016, but has continued to operate essentially as an independent agent. Still retains other underwriting relationships, which is very important to us at University, to make sure that we get to operate from an entrepreneurial perspective and have that flexibility. So I think from that perspective, they're very similar companies, and so it was a natural fit for them to be sister companies to each other. But that's the history of the two companies. And University Title since then has then grown quite a bit. That was for 40-something years of its existence. It existed in College Station pretty much exclusively, and it was a great operation. And then in the last 5-ish years has then, as you mentioned, expanded into San Antonio, expanded into Houston, and also into Brown County. So it's a statewide footprint, and has been a great and growing and successful company for its entire duration.
I have to bring this up. When we spoke of the retreat that we had, I don't remember what day it started. I don't remember we got a day off, but we were there overnight. But I asked one of the senior leaders in our group, because we'd had in-house presentations about University Title Company. I think we're having dinner. I said, well, when are the Investors Title people going to come in and tell us how we're going to run University Title their way?
Yeah.
And the response was, they're not.
Yeah.
They're not coming.
Yeah.
This is our company. Run it the way that we see fit. Don't be stupid. Make good decisions. But they're not going to come in and tell us how to run the shop.
No,
which
I think
is astounding to me still.
Yeah, well, it speaks to their. Well, first of all, it speaks to the fact that University Title they were smart enough to know, hey, this is already a great group of people that are running a great company, and the best thing that we should do is just ask the very simple question, which is, tell us how we can help, and more importantly, tell us where we can't help, and then we'll stay out of that. And I think they've been they took that very seriously, at its inception. I mean, there's a reason that University Title has been a great company for 50 years, and it would be, unfortunately, in our industry, that has happened a lot, which is you've seen a lot of companies that were great independent companies that, for whatever reason, people decided that wasn't. I mean, I won't mention it, but I worked for one of those companies in Austin that was a venerable company that was purchased by another company, which it was fine, except that, the
The
attitude
world
was,
changes.
well, let me come in and fix that for you. It's
Right.
like, well, what are you fixing? Everything's working great, right? So,
Right.
so yeah, they've been, Morris has been very conscious of that, and that's a difficult. It's hard to set your ego aside and not want to, insert yourself in places that are already working, and I think that's very commendable.
Well, I'm going on 3 years here, and I'm still amazed.
Yeah.
I am just absolutely amazed how much latitude that they seem to give University Title Company and local decisions and how the business is run. I'm very thankful for it myself.
Well, and I think the acid test of that is always, we've had a difficult market for 2 years.
Yes.
And that's generally the opportunity and the excuse to, say, oh, okay, well, this is,
Yeah.
a chance to. And so I think that, if ever something is going to happen, it's going to be at a time like that. So it's,
Right. Well, I owe you $1 because that's the perfect segue into my next question.
Oh.
Kathleen and I have a feel for the market in San Antonio. We don't have on the ground understanding of the Houston Metroplex, DFW, Travis County and the surrounding area, and certainly not out in West Texas, El Paso, Amarillo.
Yep.
Can you offer any insight on the Texas market as a whole?
Yeah, it's this may be an unsatisfying answer. I mean, the answer is that really nobody knows. I mean, I think generally some of the fundamental challenges that have been in the Texas markets probably since 08, 09 still exist. There is still fundamentally in the major Texas markets, even though it hadn't felt like it for the last couple of years, there's still actually, in comparison to the available group of buyers, a bit of an inventory crisis. I mean, there's still not enough inventory. That's been ameliorated a little bit over the last couple of years just because volume has been down. Volume's at a 25-year low or something at this point. There have been a lot of headwinds not just in the national market, but particularly in the Texas market, which is because there's still not enough inventory in a real sense. Even though rates have been up and volume's been down, you haven't seen prices probably come down as much. And there was such a huge, particularly in Austin, for example. I mean, I live outside of Austin. The price run up during the crazy times in 2021 and the first part of 22 was unsustainable. And Austin, if you read the news, the national news, well, it's had the largest percentage drop. Well, the largest percentage drop still hasn't come back down to where it was
Right.
just a few years ago.
Right.
And I live there, and I could not afford the house that I live in now if I had to go buy it right now, and it's not even a very good house. I mean, it's just an old house.
Yeah.
So what we've seen still in the major Texas markets is that there are a lot of things that are kind of working in opposition to each other, which is, yes, rates are up, volume's down. You would normally expect prices to fall a little more than they have. It looks like, at least by the latest report, inflation's a bit more under control now. So it's conceivable that rates will loosen up. The problem with that is that that's going to drive probably some demand for which there is not enough supply. And that may lead to, the same issue that we had, which was price run-ups. So, builder activity's up in an absolute sense. And I think that there is the opportunity and there's light at the end of the tunnel, but this is not a problem that Texas digs itself out of quickly, in my opinion. There's going to be pressure on inventory for the foreseeable future. Overall, I think that the national forecast, if you look at the National Mortgage Bank, they're anticipating an 18% rise in volume next year. They're smarter people than I am, but they're also wrong sometimes. So I don't. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
We're forecasting that there'll be so far 24 is exactly as we were anticipating, which is really volume is pretty much flat. If you compare it to last year, it's been up a month here, it's down another month. It's really pretty similar in terms of volume, which is not an unsustainable. We've definitely been able to run a business in that volume, but it's hard for me to imagine that personally that 2025 looks a lot different in the major markets. I think we're probably looking at similar volume. I worry. I'm both excited for and worried a little bit about rate decreases and about how that may have some good effects, and I'm a little bit concerned about it also causing a little bit of euphoria that's maybe short-lived from that perspective. I think the fundamentals of the market are okay, but I don't think that the inventory issue is going to go away very quickly.
So I've been sleeping pretty well at night, and I'm going to ask you a question that I wasn't planning on asking, and your answer will determine whether or not I continue to sleep well at night. My sense in San Antonio, on the residential side, not the commercial, residential, is we've pretty much hit bottom.
Yeah.
It can't get much worse than it is.
Yep.
So with y'all's leadership, if we've figured out how to keep the doors open, pay the light bill, keep operating a business, and this is the worst. We think it's the worst it's going to get. And we figured out how to survive. And I think this is survival mode. That's what helps me sleep at night.
Yeah.
Do you agree, or am I going to lay in bed
I do.
tonight
No, I
worrying?
think that we're really well positioned. And I think that, if you, had the honest conversations with yourself over the last year and a half and did the things that needed to be done. Fundamentally, look, there's still plenty of business to be done. And it's really for any title company, it's just about, okay, well, how do we articulate the value that we bring to the transaction, and then how do we go get the business that's there? I feel pretty optimistic, actually, about, we don't anticipate the market getting worse. I think it could get a bit better. I don't think it's going to, return to some, and frankly, some of the things that were going on in that time period a couple of years ago were unsustainable and
not healthy.
Right,
No.
and we're not healthy. So I think we're potentially in a healthier market than we were then. And then it's more about how do you execute and how do you make sure that you're providing, excellence to the folks that are out there doing the business and working hard to bring it in the door. So yeah, we feel pretty good about it. If you look at, one of the nice things is, one of the nice things about being a publicly traded company is you don't have to take anybody's word for it. You can go
Right.
look at our performance and see
Right.
how we're doing. But yeah, I think that we've certainly got the right team. We've got the right group of people. We're doing fine. And I do think the market has probably, at least for this cycle, has hit the bottom, right? And now the question is, is it going to climb out like that, or is it going to climb out like
Right.
this? I'm guessing it's going to climb out like this.
I agree.
And I think that that's fine. I think that we're well positioned, and I think that we're going to do a good job in that market. And I think we're going to see improvement, over the next year.
Well, I will sleep well again
Good.
tonight. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
You're welcome.
So I have a question. I have a series of questions for you.
Okay.
I'm an old closer. This is what I've done for way too many years. And I've often been told over the last number of years, automation is going to make my job easier. We're going to be automated. You're going to quit doing all the menial job. It's not. Automation has made it not that much better, if any better at all. So a closer is burdened with a number of responsibilities, not just closing the transaction, but getting the transaction ready to close, taking care of the issues that you have to address prior to closing. And our clients and customers just want to get closed. So I don't think a closer today in 2024, I think they have more stress than in 1984 or 1974. One thing you've done that I would like for you to talk about is you have developed departments within University Title Company that relieve a closer of some of that those time eating tasks, coupled with the stress of trying to get that done. And this is the first company I've worked at where I've seen this done to the degree that you have. Could you talk a little bit about how you made my life easier?
So many ways.
That's my goal in life.
Right?
I am a firm believer in work smarter, not harder. And so I do believe that we do have to embrace some of the technology changes, but I also heavily want to rely on our strength in University Title. And what I mean by that is our company's been around 51 years in College Station, and they are strong. I mean, we've got a lot of employees that have been with us 30 plus years. I kind of say, like, in our growth mode, we've got a handful of employees that have been with us 5 and under, and then we have a lot of employees, probably 3/4 of our employees have been with us 15 plus. And so I think that that's exciting for a company of that age. But what I lean on my experience a lot in how we run this behind the scenes. And so I think about being relatable. And I started here in San Antonio as a receptionist, escrow assistant, escrow officer, kind of all of those aspects of the operations team. And I've learned a lot. As you know, you learn by mistakes. And I've learned how to do things. And I have, more importantly, learned how not to do things. Yeah. And so the fortune that I've had is to be able to blend in to the current University Title operations team, leadership team, Jennifer Price, Darlene Fairchild. We have our own chief title officer because we own our own plants in certain counties. So Brazos County, we have the subscription there and we run that. Charles Marino runs that for us. So what I've been able to do is kind of go in and find those strengths and build on them. And how I build on them is to say, okay, when I was an escrow officer or when I was an escrow assistant, through this career, I've had 2 babies. I've taken a handful of vacations, and I've gone through COVID. And I know what it feels like to step away from your desk or to feel like you can't step away from your desk. And so a lot of the things that I have kind of worked with our team to support is, that peace of mind, and to say, hey, there's a counterbalance to having work-life balance. And this industry is very demanding. And these are people's dreams, right? I mean, this is one of the top 3 things that people do in their lives, which is, get married, buy a home, have a baby. And so we fall right into those categories. And so I want to say that we do not take that lightly. With that being said, we've also come across times that we haven't seen before as far as fraud goes. Yeah. And so I need, in our conversations about checks and balances, right? Because you're overwhelmed as an escrow officer, phone calls, people coming in, closings in the lobby that aren't ready. And some of the little details that can turn out to be costly fall through the cracks. And it happens everywhere. And so how do I best support those things? I think that your best energy is customer service and customer facing. People close with University Title because of you guys, not because of us. And so how do I best support that is what our thought process is behind the scenes.
So I'm an escrow officer and I get a contract in, I get my commitment back, title examinations done, and I've got huge probate problems. I've got huge estate problems. Up until University Title Company as an escrow officer, it was my job to sort that out. I had to chase down the heirs. I had to find out what their email. I had to figure out who was married to who and which kids belonged to which parent. And that you can spend hours and hours and hours trying to get that done. In the meantime, you've got closings that are waiting to happen. Mm-hmm. You fix that. Yes. How did you fix that?
I've been there. Mm-hmm. I've been there. And those are the things that you work out, you work on in the evenings or, late at night or come in early in the morning. And that's where, it is very important on the work smarter, not harder. I also believe a lot of that comes into our relationship with the underwriter to know what the requirements are. But I also want to say that we also have the ability to underwrite on other underwriters.
Right.
You mentioned the big four. There's some other independent ones that, we have options. So I think building on that and taking Darlene Fairchild kind of leads that for us. We have a phenomenal general counsel. I feel like I'm giving all the secrets, but Eric McNeese is wonderful.
I agree.
You've had a lot of experience with having this team at your, you can call them. You do not need to go through either of us. You can call them. Our examiners are in the state of Texas. So that is very important to old schoolers like you and I.
Our examinations aren't done offshore.
Yeah.
But I think that the
A guy named Joe or Bob.
To tag on to what she said, when I was an escrow assistant, I got into title by starting a title company, knowing nothing about title, which I do not recommend.
That was a good move, Tom.
Yeah. And then I went, when I sold that company to a bigger company, and I went and actually learned how a title company operated, I went back to being an escrow assistant because frankly, I needed to in order to learn it. And in fact, the closer that I was an escrow assistant for is actually one of the lead closers for another national investors agent now, which is funny. So it comes full circle. But, when I was an escrow assistant, I was shocked at, there's so many moving parts and there's so many regulatory requirements that a title company has. And then there's just a lot to getting a file closed. And it's surprising how much of that, while necessary, is not client facing, is not, these are just things that have to happen. And I think where Steph's particular genius is in finding those things that have to happen that are a critical part of providing that service to the real estate consumer and to the real estate agent and the lender and everybody else, and saying, okay, but those are things that we can create a team. She's referenced Darlene and Eric and those people who have the background and the expertise to do that. And then that's a resource that the escrow team can tap into that saves them time without sacrificing control over the file, which is I've got people I can go to now who are, just as you said, who are going to help me. I've got this huge probate issue, which historically, you better figure that out, and you're going to have minimal help doing that. The trick is, how do you do that in a way that is sustainable? And part of it's just having the right people. We have the right people and putting them in the right position, and then making sure that there's good communication between them and the escrow team.
What's astounded me here, and I haven't admitted this to Stephanie until today. I'm old school. I came up that way. I was used to checking all of my entity documents, if it's LLC or corporation or partnership, whatever it may be, to make sure I had the right corporate documents or JV documents. I knew who was authorized to sign. But in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, Romy, has you got it right? Are you absolutely sure you got it right? I was used to reviewing all of my surveys, and commercial transaction surveys can be very busy. So I would do my survey work, amend the commitment accordingly. In the back of my mind, I'd always be thinking, Romy, did you miss anything? Did you miss a setback line? Did you miss an easement? Did you get everything? Here, and again, I told Steph, I admitted to this today for the first time. When I'm closing the commercial transaction and I get the LLC documentation in, I don't even look at them. I shoot them off to that department in College Station. I don't worry about it. They're going to tell me if it's good or not. If I've got a survey issue, I'll look at the survey, but I'm not going to make those decisions. I know where to send it for review. If it's a probate issue, a curative issue, I know I don't have to spend 12 hours, 2 work days trying to get it sorted out. I send it to Darlene Fairchild, a curative. So from a closer standpoint, it just amazes me how much of a burden has been taken off of me, not just from a workload, but a stress load, because I'm not questioning myself. Did you catch everything? That's not part of the contract, reviewing those entity documents. So I want to thank you personally for that. Maybe it's an old age deal, but man, I'm taking advantage of every opportunity I have to have somebody else help me.
Well,
whenever it
and
comes in.
I think that's really tapping into university title strengths. Worked very closely with Jennifer Price, who's our president of operations and runs the College Station region. And she really helps that vision come to be, right? And based on, she's been with the company 20 plus years. And so to take what she has versus the vision outside, Marianne Havey is a superstar behind the scenes and takes my ideas and helps me put them onto paper. But I want to clarify that this is never to take anybody's position. This is checks and balances because I've sat in those seats and I think about when I was a closer, when I was a receptionist, when I was any of these positions, I would have loved to have this kind of support. Sure. It would have changed my life. So there's that concept. And then the other thing would be that I want to empower our employees. I want you, this is your entrepreneurship. How big do you want this to be? You know, we do some goal setting and we talk about these things at the end of the year and what we think your potential can be and what we look at the market and consider all of that. But I want to know, how big does Kathleen Doty want to be? What is your vision through this? And sometimes be careful what you ask for because now we're here on a podcast.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah. Who knew this was going to happen 2 years ago?
Yes, Stephanie, thank you for bringing that up. That's another point. I'm just real quickly going to jump on this. University Title Company is the only title company I've ever worked at where I could come to you with an idea that you didn't believe, that you thought I was just lost my mind, and you make one phone call to see if the company is comfortable with us doing this. And they said, well, sure, go ahead and do it. If this had been one of the national companies I've worked for in the past, it would have gone all the way up to corporate. And the answer would have come back no, because they would have said there's no benefit to it. From a corporate standpoint, a legal standpoint, no, it's not worth it. And here we are. I don't know how much longer we're going to get to do this, but we're having fun for a while, so thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank you all for giving us this opportunity for, this idea that Romy came up with a couple months ago to do a podcast that it focuses just on commercial. And, we're very passionate about this project, and it was very important for us to have you as our leadership here to show our listeners and to tell our listeners who we are, who are those guys, and what is it that sets us apart, and and our plans for growth for the future, which is we want to grow, we want to just try new things, and we have a great team here in San Antonio. We've got great teams across the state of Texas, and thanks to y'all, we have incredible leadership.
Well, I wanted to ask you. So, what do you? I mean, from your perspective, what has set University Title apart for you as our commercial lead from a business development perspective?
That's a great question. I mean, I came into this with no title experience except for closing investment properties of my own. Didn't have much title experience except for signing my name, and came into not only title but commercial title. And I would say the greatest thing and opportunity that you three have collectively given me in this role is support. And you've not clipped my wings, but you've guided me. Romy and I work together daily, and he's my mentor. And so every day I'm a sponge listening to Romy and with his guidance, and, join Crew, Commercial Real Estate Women, join REXA, Real Estate Council San Antonio, get involved. The guidance that you have given me, and again, the opportunity for me to try these things where no idea is too crazy. And if they are, then we figure it out. And we all sit down together as a team and we figure out what is our game plan and what is our approach. And whether that's Romy and I getting out in the community and teaching commercial CE to brokerages, the podcast. I mean, you have given me an opportunity for growth. And, as a newbie entering this world almost 2 years ago, I feel like we've made great strides. And my eye is on the horizon, and I cannot wait to see how far we can take this thing. It's just with your support, I'm able to do that. So thank you all. I know that we're kind of cutting short on time. I've got my last question of the podcast, which is, yes, sir.
Is there anything else? Do y'all have any comments?
No, other than just to
Mm-hmm.
to tag onto what you said, which is I think that's probably the most important thing we can do is try new things.
Yeah.
Right. I think Steph's heard me say it 100 times. I I definitely don't have the market. Maybe Steph does, but I do not have the market cornered on good ideas. In fact, I have a lot of terrible ideas. And I think one of the most important things about moving forward and innovating is you try things, and then the most important thing is to try things.
Sure.
And then some stuff doesn't work, and then the second most important thing is, okay, well, just don't do the stuff that didn't work, but keep trying new things, because that's the only way. It's not overall a particularly innovative industry, and that's what we need to do. In the market, we've seen how fast the market can shift. We've seen how fast things can change fundamentally, things that are beyond the control of any one individual person or company, and so being able to innovate is really important, I think.
I just to tie on to that a little bit, I think that's the key for us, particularly in a market like this. You can't rest on your laurels. You've got to be thinking about what can I do different tomorrow that I didn't do today that's maybe going to add a great result. It may not. It may be a complete failure, but you've got to at least be forward thinking about what can I do tomorrow to make this environment better, to increase our market share, to enhance our services, whatever it may be. And again, with a smaller company like we are, as nimble as management seems to be, it seems as though y'all are not. Every decision is not made by anybody in North Carolina. It's made locally if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, we just don't do it again, which is an absolute blessing. The only other thing I want to bring up, and you did touch on it, from the commercial side, it is such a blessing. We've got 6 underwriters I can go to. If I get a no out of the first underwriter I send a deal to, because there's a risk component that underwriter is not comfortable with for whatever reason, I can send that transaction to number 2. And if they say no, I can send it to number 3. And in my experience, the last 2.5 years, I haven't lost a transaction yet. Somebody will insure it. You just have to get out and look for them. And with the national companies who I worked for in the past, the first no was no. I couldn't shop a policy to another underwriter. So I personally want to thank you all for that. It's been a blessing for me. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No. I agree completely with what Romy said. When I'm out marketing for University Title, that is one of the biggest things that I love to mention to our potential clients and business partners is we have options. There's a lot of title companies here in San Antonio and Bexar County that don't have that. And what a blessing it is for us that we can say that we have so many options and great options, and we can close the entire state of Texas, all 254 counties. And so, yes, I will say that is something that we love to boast and we're proud of. I wish that we could talk for 2 more hours because I feel like there's so much to say, and y'all have so much knowledge and experience that Romy and I have been so thankful that y'all taken time out of your day to join us. We'll have to have you come back and maybe share a little bit more, maybe in a couple more seasons or episodes on
Steph will sing a song.
That's right. and where we are and where we're going. And I just know that we've got a lot of growth opportunity for us at University Title. So my last question is cheesy, but I love it. And it kind of just binds us all. Obviously, Tom, you're not in San Antonio. You're an Austin guy, but
this one's going to be controversial.
I know, but I need to ask, for you and your families, what is your favorite place to get breakfast tacos on the weekend?
Well, I have a particular local favorite, which is just outside of Lakeway, La Gordibuena.
Okay.
Just a little local place. Yeah. And then Noños, which is also up in North Austin's really good. So I'm going to pick those 2. Okay. That will probably start a war.
A little controversy.
But I would recommend either one of them.
Okay.
And I'll add a third, which is unexpectedly good.
Oh.
So straight across the street from Lake Travis High School, there is a convenience store, LT Market.
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah, LT Market on Saturday mornings might have the best breakfast tacos. They only serve them on the weekends. They might have the best breakfast tacos in Austin, period.
Is that the place with the little wine bar in there?
No, that's Lakeway Market.
Okay, I know that one. Sorry.
So LT Market and Lakeway, that's also,
okay.
My wife hangs out at the little wine bar there a lot.
Yeah.
But,
guilty.
Yeah, but
I have family in the area,
LT
guys.
Market looks like a Chevron.
Yeah, okay.
Like it is not a place that you would expect.
Yeah.
They have, and there's these ladies in there that cook them. It's all, they make homemade tortillas, fresh ingredients. They're there. It's phenomenal.
Love it.
So those are my 3.
Okay, friends, if you're in Austin, check them out.
Yep.
I don't question you on a bunch of things, but the San Antonio Austin
I'm
telling you,
taco
man.
debate,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
I might have to do a field trip.
Mhm.
That's an
Mine.
idea.
Yeah.
I like
Field
that.
trip.
See,
Yeah.
empower ideas.
That's right.
Mine, I'm going to give out my secret. On the northeast side, on Saturday or Sundays, you might find my family and I at the Huss Cafe off of O'Connor and 35. It's probably like the Huss number 54.
Right,
or
right,
Yeah.
right,
something.
right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Delicious.
Okay.
The tacos are like huge.
Yeah.
We should take a field trip there too.
What are you doing after this?
I think we need to do a road trip.
That's right.
Just to make you aware, Austin tacos, breakfast tacos versus San Antonio breakfast. Sorry.
Well,
San
Hey.
Antonio's we're gonna take that crap.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We'll go check it out, and then we
We'll
can
check
give
it
our
out.
Yeah.
opinions.
This has been a lot of fun. We finally figured out who those guys are,
Yeah.
so we don't have to ask that question anymore. Tom Berry, CEO of University Title Company, amongst many other hats that he wears. Stephanie Lozano, COO of University Title Company. And you've got other hats also, but we didn't spend much
So many
time on
hats.
those. This is the commercial corner for University Title Company. Typically, we talk about commercial real estate business. Today was a treat. We got to bring our management team in. We are on Spotify. You can find us on YouTube. I was told today to say hit the subscribe button. Is that correct? Okay. So hit the subscribe
So
button.
proud of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm learning. I'm being drug into the 21st or 22nd century, which one of this is, and kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
Thank you all again. We've enjoyed
Thank
it.
you. Really enjoyed it, too.
And for all you listeners out there, thank you. New tagline. Everybody, please remember this. Every day is a holiday. Every meal's a banquet.
Thank you.